Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here, live from Memphis. What a game last night. I'm wearing the Michigan hat out of reverence to TK, Jeff Tickenen, my friend. Watched the game with him. Proud native of Birmingham, Michigan. You know, the folks up there in Saginaw and Traverse City, where Retriever Journal is published and made every month, one of the great magazines in America. Watched the game last night. What a game. I picked it. I had Michigan to win 34-28. I think I was the only one on the show yesterday that didn't take Washington. And I think a lot of people around the country don't like Michigan. How can you not like Jim Harbaugh? His mother and father were there. His brother was there. They seem like Ward and June Cleaver. I mean, they seem like nice people. Chris Lee is going to join us here in just a moment from the Southeastern 14. Looking forward to getting his take on what happened last night. And, you know, I love college football. Weep not, my friends. The game will take a brief pause, sort of a bathroom break. But we've got the Senior Bowl, the Reese's Pieces Mobile Senior Bowl coming up. All right? We've also got the East-West Shrine game. We got, of course, the NFL playoffs are going to crank up this weekend, and that is going to be a lot of fun to watch that play out, because if the playoffs are anywhere close to being as good as they've been the last few years, again this year, it's going to make you fall in love with pro football again. I love college, but it leads to the pros. So, and then in about mid-February, there will be a team out there in the SEC that will start spring practice. Trust me. All right. Don't worry. And then we've got signing date coming up in early February, the second national signing date for colleges to sign high school football players. But that'll be here before you know it. So don't panic. College football, we will keep you informed every day, 6 days a week, 25 times a month. Over 300 shows a year with great guests like Chris Lee of the Southeastern 14. And I know he's got the architects. They got architects and engineers ready to expand that studio from the Southeastern 14 to the Southeastern 16. I've already got it on my Barnwood. Brenda made my board. She carved it out of cypress. Ken Capps has ordered one now out in Dallas, Football Writers Association of America. But soon Texas and Oklahoma will be joining us. But college football, after watching the game last night, Michigan, that is a team that looked like they really love playing together. Well coached. They got the national championship. So I thought I'd wear the Michigan hat out of reverence to TK, who's watching over in Burnt Cane, which is right near Round Pond, Arkansas. Chris, did you stay up and watch that game last night, even though there are no SEC teams involved?
I did. I actually thought Washington had a decent shot to win. I picked Washington to win. I think Michigan, the computers have felt all year, was the better team. But I thought after watching that Alabama game and after watching Washington and Texas, I thought Michigan really disrupted what Alabama wanted to do with the pass rush. I thought Washington's offensive line was good enough, and it had guys that could get open downfield, and Penix had just been so good that would be good enough to win. It wasn't. Penix had the worst game I've ever seen him play. They caught some bad breaks with penalties and stuff like that, and it was what it was.
I thought last night I had Michigan to win 34-28. That was my pick, and I said it because I like their defensive line, not just their offensive line, but both lines of scrimmage. And the way they matched up with Alabama made me think that. And Alabama's offensive line isn't great. They're big, but Washington had 26 fifth and sixth year players on the roster. That was big. And Michael Penix, I think the defense that Michigan ran last night made it miserable for Michael Penix. But I got to tell you, watching him walk off that field, he's in a lot of pain. And you know what? He's going to be great for the NFL. Seems like a good young man, the kind of guy that you want as the face of your franchise. And it was no fun losing, but I thought that was a great game, sportsmanship, everything you love about college football. And I don't think I saw a single shot on the sidelines, a panning of the cameras of a player from either school in street clothes who had quit on his team. That was a great revival of love for college football. Whether you're an SEC fan, which we all are, but it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of issues with how the product is made. I think that and my dog is particularly upset about this, as you can hear.
I love it.
My goodness. I mean, it's complete chaos, but what it is made is for parity. And I see your thing here on the marquee is SEC supremacy in question. I really don't. I think that's sort of beside the point. And look, I'm glad that it's interesting. To me, it's let's say the SEC won the Natty 20 years in a row. While that might be fun for people in this part of the country, is it great for the game? Does it grow the game? I don't think so.
No.
I've been saying this all along. I think you had 7 teams that had an argument for the playoff. I think Florida State was the least of them based on its injury situation. I don't think Florida State would have been competitive with these teams, but I understand why people want it to be there. I think what it has done is it's made a super competitive product that if you could take some of the bones of what's happened and repackage it with some guardrails, you've got a chance to have a golden era of college football in front of us. I think the 12-team playoff, people laughed at that for years, said, hey, we didn't even need a 4-team playoff. We had a 2-team playoff, and that was great, and it got us where we wanted to be. But if you're watching and paying attention at how much the playing field had been leveled, you could see a little bit of what was coming, and now everybody's like, well, we should have had a 12-team playoff because then we wouldn't be in this mess. So I think the fact that we have flipped quickly from a 2-team playoff is adequate to we need a 12, and I even saw for people calling for more last night, it means it's more like the NFL where just by virtue of being in, maybe you can win the thing, which is not the case in college. If you'd had a 12-team playoff in college football the last couple of decades, it would have been laughable. We're not at that point anymore, and I think that's good for the game.
Yeah, and I think that when I look at college football nationally, you're right. I am SEC all the way. I'm an Auburn grad. You do a show, the Southeastern 14, soon to be the Southeastern 16. The question was asked to me last night. I was over in Burnt Cane, like I said, right next to Round Pond, not too far from Hughes, Arkansas, at my friend TK's house, a lifelong Michigan fan. I mean, he was so excited, so fired up watching that. And he's a Michigan grad, and he lives in Chicago, but he's down here all the time, especially during duck season. And people were asking, some of the people we were watching the game, are Texas and Oklahoma, especially Oklahoma, are they a good fit in the SEC? I said, man, if you look at the map in the last presidential election, every county in Oklahoma was a red county. They're going to fit the SEC. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma are in my opinion, going to make the SEC better. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's also going to ramp up the pressure to everybody else, not just in football, but in every sport, because they're good in everything.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would still, if I were commissioner of things, I would go back to the way a lot of things used to be. I just think that you're missing, like I said, I just pointed out one scenario whereby I think the playoff and the postseason season is going to be way more interesting than it's ever been. What we've lost in that at the same time, I mean, the whole Pac-12 thing's ridiculous, first of all.
Yeah.
But I go back even further, and I look at what I used to do Thanksgiving weekend. Friday was appointment TV, Nebraska, Oklahoma. That game's been gone for what, 12, 15 years? I don't know how long.
Yes.
I mean, we've lost all kinds of stuff like that I think if you could put it back together with some of those things, with some of what we've got, it would be awesome. I don't know that we can ever get back there. I mean, maybe eventually TV is going to dictate this. I think what who was the coach that came out and said, I think what you need is college football is its own thing, and then go back
Chip
to
Kelly.
conferences. Yeah, get geographic alignment with, and I think he's right. I think you could probably do both, especially with a 12-team playoff. But that to me would be the perfect marriage of things. I know I've gotten us off topic, but
No.
I hate that we've lost that part of things.
No, you're never off topic. You're great. When you're on here, hey, the First Amendment, free speech, the right of free assembly, that's guaranteed. I love what you just said because we've been saying it on this show. Chip Kelly has a bigger, platform as the UCLA football coach.
Yeah.
But he's right. Put football on a separate island. It can be a national because it's a once-a-week deal. But it's the they call them Olympic sports, non-revenue, whatever. It's every other sport is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to be tough having to travel across the country. And I think maybe after a year or two, there probably will be discussions. Let's just go back to what we had. But what's going to happen, though, in the Mountain West, they're going to jump on this, the Oregon State and Washington State. And those schools are going to be forever jaded. They're going to feel differently. But I'm with you. I don't want to lose the ACC because of the basketball tradition. I am a sentimental history tradition.
Michigan's in the Big Ten. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, Maryland, excuse me.
Yeah. I mean, and everybody will talk about Lefty Driesell. I remember Jimmy talking one time saying he ran into Lefty Driesell in an airport somewhere. He goes, "Come on, coach. Give me 1 foot stomp." Remember, he used to stomp his feet when he'd get mad. But that's, and he's still alive. He's in his early 90s, Lefty Driesell. Growing up, you've seen on the ACC network that documentary about ACC basketball tournament. I mean, that kind of stuff, when you and I were kids, the DX trading stamps, it's like fantasy football of today. You've got the roster of every team, and every time your parents got gas or groceries or whatever, you got stamps and you could fill them in. You knew every player on every team on the roster. And fantasy football, one of our viewers yesterday said there's so many women playing fantasy football. It's kind of like the new bridge, the game of bridge that my mother and all of her friends would play. I never have played bridge or gin rummy, but they're very popular games. But think about this. With college football, with the portal, man, you better have an eraser, a bunch of them.
Yeah. I mean, we could do an hour on the portal alone. I hate the way that it's constructed. Again, what we needed was from the top leadership. The NCAA is powerless and has been gutless, and here we are.
Well, we don't have any leadership. Charlie Baker.
No, that's my point. Yeah.
Look, go in any direction you want. I'm ADD and OCD, so structure helps me. But when we're talking about this is college football and stuff, man. Bring up anything you want, and I think this is good. I'm excited about the new and improved SEC, but I'm already missing 2 long-time Rob. Yeah, I mean that's what we do. You're right. I love what you said. Appointment TV. Talk about that a little bit more on ways we can save. We can always save what we've got.
Well, if you want to book in this whole discussion on, or maybe bookend's not the right word, maybe frames of a picture. Where do you set the borders? I think on one side you would set it is competitiveness. I think the NFL, like I said, to the playoffs. You remember the Giants got in one year and beat an undefeated Patriots team. Now,
2007, they were 9-7.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to go there. To me, that would have been a better story if the Patriots had won it, but that's neither here nor there. That's one border of the picture. The other border is the history and tradition that I talked about. I don't know how you find loyalty to your school anymore when the players change every year. When the 5-star kid you recruited or the 3-star diamond in the rough that you developed, like Ole Miss just did with Quinshon Judkins, takes off and leaves because he can every semester. I don't think that's good. I think having some stability. I remember when we grew up, you could name entire Major League Baseball infields.
Yes,
you knew who the Dodgers were going to be in 1980 and 1981 and 1982. Same with the Reds for a while before. I mean, I think that's like when I was a kid and you grew up and watched SEC basketball, which was crazily underrated. you knew that if Mississippi State or Alabama got this freshman that was really good, you're going to have fun watching him, 3 years later. Now that's come and gone in the meantime with the draft, but you at least would get him for the most part for 3 years. And I know that's come and gone with the draft and one and done. And those aren't a huge number of players, but you lost some of that. That's another part of the thing. I think the need for order is another edge of the frame, bringing it back to where you can't just leave any time, and there's some continuity of rosters. And I'm sure there's a fourth in there. Well, I'll give you one. Some common sense with TV, because I didn't think the playoff times in the semifinals were great for growing the game. You had kids at places that were going to be back in school the next day, and games ending at, I don't even remember when the semifinal ended, but I fell asleep in the middle of the third quarter and was dozing in and out. I was wanting to watch the game. I mean, I think those are probably the four frames of the picture that we got to get right in order to make the picture a good one on the whole.
Well, the game last night, it was smart. They started it at 6:30 p.m. Central. Yeah. So, I mean, they got to think about that. You better get your kids some of them can't stay up that late. You better get them hooked on college football. And what gets people hooked is attaching to players on a roster. Yep. And they're going to figure this stuff out. And I wish people would calm down because it will work itself out. But right now, I'm with you completely. You try to follow a roster. Like, look here in Memphis. Penny Hardaway, I think 13 of the 14 players on his basketball team, he's got a pretty good team this year, are new. I can't. Nobody. Who are they? You'll get to know them. Yeah. But you're right. Everybody, in a certain age group, remembers the Big Red Machine, the Cincinnati Reds. Marty Brenneman, voice of the Reds, AM 700 WLW. Okay, and Kentuckiana, Louisville, WHO, AM 840. I'm an AM radio junkie. And if you look around, if you're in a room with a bunch of people now, adults and children, kids, say people in their 20s and whatever, and older, they're staring at their phones. They're not engaging in conversation. Everything is a quick sound bite. But the market will correct that stuff. In the late 90s, as a financial advisor, I remember people with Stewart, you can throw darts against the wall and make money. Who needs a financial advisor? Yeah. Then March of 2000 came along. NASDAQ was over 5,000. The Dow was 11,728, I think. And boom, NASDAQ got down to about 1,100 pretty fast. A lot of these people, you don't see Stewart and all those ads anymore. Okay. Because it's not about what stocks you buy. The most important thing that I know with my clients is customer behavior. And you better be calm. People say, what'd you do, Rob? The market went down 1,100 points today. I'm like, it did? I'm not looking at the day-to-day. If you like vegetables and you got a vegetable garden and you go out and pull up your tomatoes and your eggplant and your carrots by the roots every day to check their progress, they ain't ever going to grow. Chris, you've seen that 150th anniversary of college football that was done back in 2019. Keith Donovan, who's now, I think, the historian for ESPN college football, he talked about the television aristocracy, and especially in the 70s. You could only be on 5 times in 2 years. And of those teams that are in that aristocracy, they're still good. They didn't go away. Got some new ones.
Yeah. Well, and you might have some new ones. And that's another good point. I mean, in all that college football has gotten wrong, man, Rob, 15 years ago, there were SEC games that you couldn't watch on TV in football.
Yep.
I remember vividly listening to several games on the radio 15 years ago when we had the capability. Now, I had a nephew that played at Wyoming. If I wanted to watch them play Northern Illinois, I might have to upgrade the cable package or every now and then find an obscure, website that was streaming the game, but I could watch it.
Yeah.
And you can carry that on down to lower levels too. I think that's one place where we have gotten better. Now the instancy of social media and things like that you brought up a minute ago, that's one place. I was following the Twitter timeline last night, watching the game. Like, man, these people are the overreactions to things in the minute because everybody feels like they got to have a take now. I'm not a huge Twitter guy. I've got a handle. I'll tweet sometimes 3 or 4 times a night, and then I might not tweet for 2 weeks because I just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
That is kind of an issue too that I don't think has made things better. But I think people get sick of that too and start to tune it out.
Well, you can't. It's like if you know anyone who's, say, an emergency room trauma surgeon, ask them what happens after a 6-car accident on I-40. They bring in 15 people. What'd you do? It's like, well, we sewed them up, got them ready, sent them upstairs to surgery. Prayed over every one of them. That's what I'd be doing if I'm a surgeon. But that's what they do. And it's amazing. Like, I have a number of clients that are pilots, No, a 777 only, I think, has 3 engines. But let's say a DC-10, or 747 with 4 engines. And I asked one of them one time, who's listening right now and watching down in Spring Hill, Florida. Love the guy and his wife. They're awesome. And he said, I know, what do you do if you're flying, Memphis to Heathrow or Memphis to Paris when he flew for FedEx? What are you going to do if you lose an engine halfway across the Atlantic at 40,000? He goes, I have 3 others. I mean, but he's an engineer, He's like, I have 3 others. And the thermal lift and all, I'm like, I got it. You convinced me. But, the cool thing is, and I hope you will stay on with this because Jason Caldwell is going to be on from Auburn Undercover in about, 9 minutes, but stay on as long as you can. Love having you on. Folks, follow Chris Lee in the Southeastern 14. Also, Vandy Rivals. He's one of the best people out there. Good man, knows what he's doing, relentless worker. So let's get into some Vandy stuff right now. What's going on up there? And, the First Amendment is alive and well on this show. That's what we take pride in. We don't wear skinny jeans. We don't wear, we don't drink the Kool-Aid. We are free speech. And this is the way we're going to always run this show. Tell me what is going on with Vandy, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
By the way, I've got a hard out here about at 8:30 because we've got to record our basketball preview stuff. But
you're always welcome to stay on if you want to.
Yeah, I appreciate it. What's going on with Vandy is I think you've got some NIL momentum, but they just were so slow out of the gate with it. I mean, they got some good players in the transfer portal. They were up to, I think, number 9 in one of the transfer portal rankings. That's died off as they've not gotten more commitments lately. Some of the kids that have left them have, gone on to Colorado and Washington and places like that, which begs some questions. I was eating lunch yesterday with the guy that knows that baseball program inside and out. And he mentioned this twice. He said, I think, they're still getting hurt in baseball by NIL. They were 3 years too late to the party. Look, they've got a team this year that I think has got a chance to compete for a national title. I think they're going to pitch enough. I think they've got enough pitching, enough depth enough. I don't know if they've got enough bangers in that lineup. You need some boppers this day and age. I think they've got a lineup of quality hitters. I don't know if they've got a lineup of great hitters. We'll see. They got a couple of freshmen that might come through. But his point was NIL's hurt baseball. They're the biggest brand in college baseball. They're the most successful program over the last decade. And being slow to that has hurt them still. And I'm just thinking, well, if this has hurt baseball, and look, they've gotten a lot better now. I know people used to joke about the unlimited scholarships through the financial aid. That was never the truth. And there were kids in it paying $100,000 out of pocket through their careers, even with the scholarship. Now it's funny. It's actually accurate. They've underwritten the full cost of everything for everyone on the roster with NIL. But I don't think there's a lot left over to, for instance, they could have landed Paul Skeens a year and a half ago. If they'd matched LSU at what was allegedly $250,000, they chose not to. Without Paul Skeens, LSU does not win the national title. With Paul Skeens, I think Vanderbilt at least makes a super regional. Maybe he's good enough to win the whole thing as good as he was. So there's kind of a disconnect between they've got the roster set in terms of now all the jokes that people used to make about their full scholarships that weren't true then are true now. Has it cost them with star power and assembling the roster now? Maybe, although they're still plenty good.
Yeah. Will Tim Corbin be Vandy's next
No.
athletic director?
No, he wanted it at one time. They don't want an athletic director. They want an administrator who will echo the school's values, I guess is a good way to put it. I was having a conversation. Boo Corrigan at Army was set to be their next AD, wanted the job. Everybody thought it was kind of a done deal, and something happened at the last minute to undo it. I've heard a couple different versions. It's really not important, but what is important, it didn't fit the image they were trying to convey.
Yeah.
They want I'll leave out some stuff here. They have a certain image they want to put forward. And it takes a couple of forms, and for whatever reason, an AD at a military academy didn't conform to that image they wanted, and they went a different way with Malcolm Turner. And then a year later, they went with Candace Lee after they ran Turner out of there because he was pushing too hard for stuff they needed to win. And Candace didn't get considered from the job the first time, but Candace was an EDD from Vanderbilt, buddies with all the Kirkland Hall administrators. And that's what's kind of important, Vandy. Can you play nice with the ideologues? And I think that's why I don't know that in our lifetimes they'll ever really have an AD. They'll have someone who is an administrator who looks and talks like they want him to talk, who's over athletics. I don't know that they'll ever go out and hire an actual athletic director.
I'll say it. She's an empty suit, and she's combat ineffective. And the people at Vanderbilt, like I said, I've got a lot of my family members. My grandfather and his brother, when they left VMI, both went to law school there. My cousin Helen graduated. A lot of great people and family and friends. Vanderbilt is in the middle of a blood red state. Their values should reflect those. It's a private university, but where do their fans come from? And you talk about schools that have these big donors. I mean, when people talk about Arkansas, they love to spend the Waltons or the Tysons or, Warren Stevens money. That's their money. And I think what people like that like to see is other people participating. Vanderbilt, Nashville, there's a lot of growth there. Do y'all want to be the next Atlanta? 40 exits, over 22 counties, 6.5 million people. Atlanta's not even half as big as Memphis, by the way.
Yeah.
Not even close to being as big. But Nashville, you're from Nashville, aren't you?
Yes.
I love Nashville. I love it. I'm the only guy as a kid that used to go to the state capitol with my dad on holidays to go meet with people as an architect, for state jobs and everything. But God, it's awesome. And it's the areas around there. My mother-in-law and two brother-in-laws live in Clarksville. It's awesome. I don't want it to be the next Atlanta. And nothing again, Atlanta's just so big that you're 22 county. Atlanta's bigger than a lot of states, metro Atlanta. You just get lost. You want to have an identity. So, all right, I know you got a hard out at 8:30. Let people know how they can follow you. Got to get you back on next Tuesday if you can do this again. Tuesdays at 8. If that works for you, man, let's do it again next week.
Yeah.
I love having you on. Appreciate everything that you do. You are relentless in putting out content. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm about to go, and we're about to preview the Wednesday night SEC basketball games. We put our previews up of the Tuesday night games yesterday.
Okay.
And tomorrow we'll have a recap of the ones that they play tonight. And then Thursday we'll have a recap of the games they play Wednesday. We had a recap this weekend, although I wasn't on that one of all the 7 games played Saturday. We cover baseball, basketball, and football in the SEC wall to wall. You can find us on YouTube where most of our content is. We got some more stuff coming, but we're not ready to roll it out yet. Just search Southeastern 14. You'll find us. And you said Southeastern 16. I'll just give you a tease. We've pivoted. I'm not gonna give you the new name yet. I think we've got one. We've got to nail down some other stuff first. But but for now you can find us at Southeastern 14. And if you want your league coverage in football, basketball, baseball, you'll get it. And if you want your Vandy coverage, vandysports.com.
Yeah, and look, they got a lot to cover, especially as you get in watching basketball. We got baseball, everything. This is just an awesome time of the year. It's going to get better and better. We'll see you next week, Chris, and we'll take a break and be right back with Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, after this.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Curve everything else. Win, 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 win. These ops ain't lit. Mommy. Win, 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 win.
All right, Rob Browne back here for the second segment. Great stuff with Chris Lee, Robles, Vandy, and the Southeastern 14, soon to be 16. Next guest, one of the best in the business, Alabama Sports Writer of the Year, Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover. I've gotten past saying inside the Auburn Tigers. That's what I grew up with Mark Murphy, and this just a great center of energy and unbelievable content that comes out. Think about the Vitamin Shop, folks. Open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m. to 8 p.m., 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi. And they've got healthcare nutritionists, specialists. They've got a whole team of people there that know what they're doing. I buy shot blocks there. I buy goo. My wife and I buy the probiotics. They've got vitamins. They'll put together a health plan that'll help you in your daily workouts and exercise. It's not, look, I can tell you this from swimming and biking and running all the time and all this stuff. The exercise and the workout's great, but just as important is the recovery and the amount of sleep that you get. Just remember that. Don't stay up all night. Now, there's 8,000 channels to watch. Just make sure you watch Sidelines either live or later, wherever you get your podcast, and whatever Jason Caldwell and the team at Auburn Undercover put out. Because, Jason, every time I get up, I leave, I come back to my laptop, y'all have got something new. You and the team, you're talking to the players, you're going to these all-star games, you're covering them. So I want to say, first off, Happy New Year, and thank you for getting on here with us. Talk about what you saw out of the all-star games so far and the players in them. And I don't know how serious they are, but I think they have a lot of fun and they're competitive.
Yeah, it was a good time. Christian Clemente went to Orlando while we were in Nashville, and so he had some thoughts from down there. But Cam Coleman was, not a surprise. He was one of the best players in Orlando in the Under Armour game, already on the Auburn campus. And, there was a reason why that one was such a big deal to get the 5-star wide receiver signed for Auburn. And so he was really the guy that stood out down in Orlando. And then we both had a chance to go to San Antonio there all week, finished it off with a game. And I was really impressed by all the guys out there. There were 5 Auburn signees that were in that game. Walker White, you started quarterback. And we saw him play, seen him, watched him physically. I knew that he had the tools. Probably the thing that jumped out to me was how quickly he adapted to having 5-star wide receiver talent all around and throwing to those types of guys. And so I think that was probably the thing that stood out the most. DeAndre Carter, offensive lineman from Mater Dei in California, was really good. A guy that doesn't look like he's one of those guys that kind of reminds you of Tyrone Green, Mike Berry, some of those guys that played at Auburn, that he doesn't look like he's a bodybuilder offensive lineman, but he just goes and plays. And he was really good. They actually played him at tackle throughout the week, and he more than held his own against the top players in the country. So I think DeAndre Carter was really good. Amaris Williams was probably the biggest surprise to me because I just hadn't seen him. I saw him play running back, and he's seen some stuff in North Carolina. Then you see him on the field, and you go, that's an explosive athlete that weighs 260 pounds or so already at a little over 6'2". I think a guy that'll play defensive end right away and get into the rotation, kind of like Keldrick Falk did last year. I think he'll do some of the similar things and be a guy that hits the ground running. He's already on campus. He was coming straight to Auburn. So he's here. DeMarcus Riddick, I've seen a bunch. Really athletic, a guy that can do a bunch of different things at linebacker, and not a surprise. And Kinsley Faustin was the last guy there, a guy that I trust the ball skills, the things he does. He's going to get a little bigger and stronger, which is not a surprise for a young DB as well. So all in all, good weeks. And so you get a chance to see a bunch of these guys that are already on campus now that'll turn around, begin working out here. I think probably the first of next week, I believe. And then, for them, it's just going to be about kind of getting as much soaked up as they can to get ready for spring practice. And not sure when that's going to be yet. I haven't heard a date on that.
Okay. A couple of questions. I got these texts. I get them a lot. DeMarcus Riddick was a 5-star while he was committed to Georgia. And now he's a 4-star when he signed with Auburn. And then I think Jamonte Waller out of Picayune, Mississippi, was a 5 when he was committed to Florida. Then he became a 4. I'm not buying into some conspiracy theory. That's not what it is. But seems like there's evaluations as the season goes along, which makes sense to me. Yeah. Did they have strong senior years, or what happened?
A lot of times it's other guys that you haven't seen before.
Okay.
That somebody goes, hey, now that we've seen these guys in person, I'll give you the perfect example. There'll be another 5-star wide receiver, I believe, that comes out of the All-American game in San Antonio. Gatlin Bear is a kid from Idaho. His high school coach, the same high school as Colson Loveland, the tight end at Michigan, who won a national championship last year. This is a kid that had like these verified track times, and they're like, okay, what's he look like? And then you see him in person, and you realize he's 6'3", 185, 190 pounds, and has a verified track time of like 4.37. And so you start going, okay, he's named after Justin Gatlin. His family has track background, and so it's normally not so much what a specific player does to drop. It's more about guys, what they've done to move ahead of somebody. So you kind of have that starting point. Most of the time, guys, there'll be some guys that do drop that maybe don't have a very good senior year. I think in case like a guy like DeMarcus Riddick, the team wasn't very good. They played him at safety some, and so he didn't put up the big numbers that he had done as a junior. So sometimes those things, but it's usually more about the evaluations of other guys once you start to see them in person, get a little bit more video and film with those guys. But no, the evaluations never end. It continued all the way through San Antonio. And that's the part of it, is that it's kind of that continuous thing, but it's usually more about what other guys have done to kind of move and shuffle some things around.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, some guys, you remember a guy, years ago, Antonio Langham, Town Creek, Hazelwood, he came on in the playoffs, and that's when he became a hot commodity. And
you look at Auburn's class right now. I mean, Malcolm Simmons is a guy and Bryce Kane both. Those are guys that both moved up into the top 150 in the country by showing this season what they had done. And so those evaluations work both ways. People just remember the ones that when they got drops, well, because when those guys moved up, somebody else had to drop. Because
you're right.
And so it's an ongoing process.
It's a cause and effect. Is what and I like you are so right. I sound like Carl Stevens and Ralph Shug Jordan on the old South Central Bell Auburn football review. You're so right, Carl. But you talked about this 3 years ago during the pandemic. A lot of people were curled up in the fetal position under their desks, afraid to go out and play. And you never stopped. And you said the state of Alabama with high school football is where the state of Georgia was about 10 years ago. I just did the numbers about 2 weeks ago, but 5 5-stars in the state of Alabama this year, 18 4s and 113 3-stars. It's this population of 5.1 million people. Holy shnikes. That's look, do the gazendas here. That's 136 right there. And then there was a 2 that signed with the University of Memphis. I don't know how many 2-stars there are, but guys like Darren Bates come to mind. I remember him. He went to my high school, to Christian Brothers, and then right before his senior year, transferred down to Olive Branch, and nobody knew where he was. I always remember Rod Woodson, remember the other cornerback on that Olive Branch team, and a friend of mine that coaches, 7th and 8th grade football, helped coach it at MUS, told me, he said that the MUS coach said Nick Saban was in his office this morning, and he was saying, is there anyone else we should be looking at? And he said, well, there's the guy named Darren Bates, but he's already committed to Auburn. And Gene Chizik, Coach Chizik, he told me one time, he said, we watched him play basketball. But Bates had a cousin named Roman Bates, who played running back in 82, 83, 84, 85 for Ohio State. And I remember talking to Roman. Roman was a great high school player. But Darren that whole summer went back and I think worked out at Christian Brothers. Started every game. And I'll never forget, after his first game against Louisiana Tech, my son Wilson, who'd been a ball boy for him in high school, remembered him. He gave Wilson a chin strap and a wristband after the Auburn Louisiana Tech game. Remember, he made the interception there on about the 2-yard line, and Terrell Zachary then made a 93-yard touchdown catch, which is at the time maybe the longest in Auburn history. Jason, what I'm getting at is, damn, Alabama high school football like nobody else. And the other thing is you're objective. If a guy's not good, you will say it. And I remember during the Harsin years, you would not budge. You'd be a great poker player. I'm not doing it. Right now, is Auburn starting to really get back in with the high school coaches?
Yeah, no, we've seen it. We saw it even in just a matter of a couple of weeks after Hugh Freeze was signed. When you start to go on the road and, you are get guys like, Keldrick Falk. Those things happen because you put in work immediately. But then you look at this class and, you talk about, especially the state of Alabama, what they were able to do. That's where it starts. It starts at home. And, you mentioned Alabama. I just went and looked just quickly in the 2025 class. There are 15 players in the top 247 in the country from the state of Alabama. 15 guys in 2025. 26 is a class that's already come on out. You mentioned being on the road. A pair of 2026 guys that in San Antonio are guys that'll be the next guys up. Tristan Lyles is a guy that Auburn's already offered from Central Phoenix City. He's a Jamonte Waller type guy that was a terror for them on defensive line as a sophomore. But then Shadarius Tootle is a kid from Mobile, 6'3" linebacker that can run, all their stuff, was one of the most impressive guys out in San Antonio. So this talent pool continues to work, and it's why it's been so important for Auburn. You mentioned relating back to high school, getting back in high schools in the state of Alabama. If Auburn wants to be successful, that's where it has to start. There's no other place. Now, you got to be good in Georgia, and you got to pick some guys in other places. But if you don't win some battles at home, it's over with. And that's what we've seen much of the last 6 or 7 years, to be quite honest, even going back to Gus Malzahn time. They didn't win enough of those battles in the state of Alabama. And if you don't do that, then you're not going to have the talent level that you need to compete. Yeah.
You remember The Athletic about 3 years ago came out. It was a really cool story. The all-time Auburn all-star team of players from the state of Alabama, high schools, versus players from the state of Georgia. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, you talk about. I think Auburn. I mean, the quarterback I believe was Cam Newton. Running backs were, golly, maybe Kenny Irons, James Brooks, William Andrews. Just unbelievable. And then Auburn stopped recruiting Georgia like they always have. It's crazy. Question here: Russell to Under Armour Jumpman. Kind of not sure. I mean, Russell did so much for Auburn. We know about the College of Textile Engineering and all like that. But, you know, I mean, I'm a traditional, I'm a sentimental, I love what history and tradition is. Could that ever happen?
Yeah. Here's the thing that will be the ultimate factor. In the end, how much is Jumpman willing to pay to be a sponsor of Auburn? And they've already got some schools. Under Armour is going to pay, and they're going to pay a lot, is from what I understand. And I don't know that anybody else is even close to that. Can you turn that down if you're Auburn? That's the question that's one of the ultimate questions going to be. So I think that's where things are going to have to start. It's a long way to go, but these meetings will happen. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. Here in the next couple of months, that will start to work itself out pretty quickly. They'll be in most all of those places. I think Adidas will be one, Under Armour will be one, Nike will be one. They're going to have talks with all these people, and it's going to come down to, okay, what kind of deal is a possibility? If it's close enough, then you might look at it. But if it's a wide gulf, then I think that's going to play a huge factor in things.
August 31st, 2006, first game of the year. I got Hallie Wilson and Max and I down there for the Auburn-Washington State game. That was the first time Under Armour was the brand for Auburn. Remember, they had 18-wheelers parked outside of Anders, J&M, University Bookstore. It was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I think they make some cool stuff, but I've never liked the shoes that they make. Why haven't they been able to get that right? And tell me more about, I'm pleading the fifth on this one, about Jumpman.
That's the Jordan brand. So
that's what I thought.
So Michigan was the first school to be a Jumpman school to win the national championship, I believe. So that is the Jordan brand. You're right. Under Armour shoes have gotten much better in the last couple of years, in my opinion.
Okay.
You're still so far behind, places that have been doing it. When you talk about Nike and Adidas, especially for years and years and years, I think they're getting better. But again, how much can the other, kind of much can they close that gap of the monetary value of it is going to be something that's going to be a big part of things to watch.
Well, I've run in a lot of shoes. I run a lot. I've never run in a better pair of shoes than Hoka's. There's not a shoe. Once you run in Hoka's, it's unbelievable. But Under Armour, they do make some cool stuff, and they've branded, and it's going to be fun to see what happens on that. You agree with Deion Pryor? It was so refreshing and healthy for college football without any team from the SEC in the national championship game. I'm wearing this Michigan hat out of respect to David Hager, his dad, Jeff Tickenen. I watched the game with Jeff over at this hunting lodge last night in Burnt Cane, Arkansas. Lifelong Michigan fan, not a bandwagoner. But did you watch that game last night and come away with like, wow, Michigan's going to be a perennial power, and so is Washington? Or what were your takeaways?
My immediate takeaway is something that I actually tweeted last week while watching the semifinal games, which is that there's a lot of thoughts. One of them is that college football, as we know it, is done, and it's almost starting over, in my opinion. We've seen bowl games. We've seen the lack of interest from players, fans for the most part, coaches too, I think, in playing a regular bowl game. But I think the transfer portal, NIL, all those things, one thing I'll freely admit I was completely wrong on was I thought it was going to make the rich richer. It hasn't. It has weakened the overall game. there was not a great football team in the country. Michigan's not a great football team. They're really
No.
good,
Yeah.
and they're great at what they were good at. But that wasn't a great football team, and it wasn't a great game that was played. I don't think there was a great football team in the country. I think it's why the playoff expansion was right, because 10 years ago, I don't know that anybody argued that there would have been a team after about the first 3 that was a threat to win a national championship. Right now, you can look and go, hey, I can look at 15 and go, that team will have a shot on a given night. And that's what we have now. So I think I look at it as that you've expanded it, and I think it's the right move now. And because I don't think there's a great team, I don't think there's a dominant team anymore, and I think teams are capable of beating other teams. I mean, we saw it last night. The game at the end, the score did not dictate that football game. And Michigan dominated the football game, but Washington had opportunities to be right there over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And couldn't capitalize. And then Michigan made a couple plays, and it opened it up at the end. They're the best team in the country this year, I believe, but I don't think they were a dominant football team. And I don't think they were a great football team, even though they went 15-0. That's what I think now. I think now is it's wide open as it's ever been. I think there's going to be opportunities for teams because of the way the world has changed. And it is not a traditionalist. It's not a fun thing for a traditionalist. I'm a traditionalist. I enjoyed bowl games. I enjoyed those things. I don't know how much longer that's going to be a feasible thing in this day and age.
Well, I mean, I go back to when everybody thinks everybody can't be right at the same time. It doesn't happen. And I mean, yesterday everybody was picking Washington, and I said, I mean, Michigan's going to beat them. That team is they have fun. They love each other. They love their coach. Whatever you want to say about Jim Harbaugh, looking at his mom and dad there and his brother last night, so that's pretty cool. But this thing's going to turn. And I think that you just gave one of the best quotes I've ever heard. They were great what they were good at, but they weren't great on both sides. They couldn't line up and stretch the field and go 60 yards. I mean, you just didn't see that. But they were national champions, and that's an iconic brand. They're the only 1,000-win school. And Dave Tompkins is on our Saturday roundtable. He's from Mountain Brook, grew up a Bama fan, graduated from West Point, got an MBA at Stanford, and his father was very close friends with Bo Schembechler. So he got to be around Coach Schembechler a lot. He talked about that's a real conservative brand. I mean, you had Schembechler, then Gary Moeller, and Lloyd Carr. Now you've got Harbaugh. I don't know if he's going to go to the NFL or not, but the SEC schools, and in this case Auburn, what made me mad about the bowl game, and you're right, was Freeze's initial comment to Andy Burcham, a young Joe Buck is what he is. He's fantastic. I love him. And I really wish you were part of that broadcast crew. I don't know if you'd want to do it. You're busy enough covering, but I didn't have the team prepared. I hate hearing that. I mean, to me, when I hear people say, oh, these bowl games are just exhibitions, they don't matter. Okay, don't charge for tickets. Don't charge for hotels, travel cost, wear and tear. You know what it's like. You've got a young daughter. I mean, it's when you're gone from your family, man, it's rough. My dad traveled so much when I was growing up. I remember Fridays at 6:00 going to the airport. That's what I remember, is picking him up he wouldn't even know where he'd been. But it takes a toll on you. Don't alienate your fans is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I think it's kind of, and I thought about it too, because after the game, people ask about some comments from Auburn players after the bowl game. And I said, look, that's what you say when you lose a game, because what you don't want to say is, hey, we're not very good. So you have to say it in a way where it sounds like, it was our fault. I thought the same thing about Arkansas basketball the other day. Auburn goes to Fayetteville and beats them by 32. And the first thing is, well, we quit. Well, you don't want to admit that, hey, we're just not very good right now. So it has to be an excuse for why you weren't very good. And that's what it happens all the time. It was, we're not prepared, or we underestimated our opponent, or whatever. it's a natural thing. It happens in sports all the time. And so people like, because it goes back to like the New Mexico State game. They're like, well, no teams prepare the same way. Because I heard somebody say that about, Kirby Smart, and the players are like, we prepare for every game the same way all the time. So does every other team. The difference is you're a lot better. So you can prepare the same way, but you're not going to play the same way every Saturday. But it doesn't matter because you're better than those other teams at every position, and you're deeper. Well, when you're not, and you don't play that way on Saturday, it shows up because you're not as talented. And so I look at it and go, look, the key is to be more talented than the other team and to be more talented than you are, so you can overcome those days when you're just, hey, it's just not fair, because it's not going to be there every game. And it doesn't make sense. You only played 12 of them, 13 with a bowl game, and you worked all year for it. But it is the reality of the situation, especially in the Southeastern Conference. And now these big, now the Oregons and Washington found out last night. The difference is, okay, now go play in the Big Ten and play those teams every week that beat you to a pulp. Yeah. And try to get through the season, because that's the difference. And that's because you look at Washington. Washington was a physical football team. That offensive line was a Joe Moore Award winner. Yeah. They're a physical football team. But the difference in the world of playing a team like Michigan, now do that 12 times or 11 times, and you're going to see how much different it is when you do that.
Yeah. And now it's going to be fun to see what happens. I don't know with Harbaugh, but back to Freeze real quick, a couple of minutes before you go, talk about the staff changes. And then are you worried? McGriff to Texas A&M, did that catch you off guard? Or is it just healthier for him to go?
Yeah. He wasn't on the field for the last 8 games or so. So not a real surprise there. Honestly, not a real surprise that you start having coordinator movement after year one, especially when you had such a short time. I mean, like you come in, you go, babe, we got to put a staff together and it hit. And so a lot of changes happening after year one. I went back and looked, and Saban, changed both his coordinators after year one. I went back and looked just the other day, as they've had, I think 5 different offense coordinators last 7 years at Alabama. It's what you come to expect now in college football coaching. The money's so different. It's such a hard job to try to fit everybody in this. The days of staff staying together 12, 14, 18, 20 years, those days are gone. It's just not happening anymore. It's going to be constant turnover. So not real surprise.
Yeah, and that's the tough part about it. I mean, but United Airlines did a great commercial years ago. They had the old sales manager there in a 3-piece suit, throwing out airline tickets to everybody in the staff meeting. Said, go see your people. Shake hands with them, get to know them, build relationships. I'm telling you, the people that will do that will still do better than the people who are trying to IB everybody and instant message and all that. You can only go so far with that. The remote world, it's going to shift back. It always happens. Jason, again, thank you so much for taking time to share with us. Got a ton of I can't type fast enough, but you answered a lot of questions. There's never enough time to get it all in. But let people know how they can follow you. Get on that Auburn Undercover website, because, folks, it's a nonstop website. I think there's somebody on there literally 24/7, as it says. You can wake up at 3 a.m. If there's a story, it's going to be on there. Thank you for what you do.
Yeah, lots of things going on. We got basketball late night tonight. Nathan King will have you covered from Neville Arena as Auburn comes back home after really impressive performance. So you can find all the basketball stuff. Still transfer portal things going on. Obviously, coaching things going on with potential hires and what's going to shake out there. So find all that at auburnundercover.com. Also follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
All right, look, man, thank you. We'll be back in just a minute with Scott Rabalais of The Advocate down in Baton Rouge right after this. Jason, see you next week.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Oh.
Whoops, sorry about that.
There we go. There we go.
Marvels of technology. Let's talk about LSU. And again, thank you so much for being on here with us. Scott Rabalais, the Advocate down in Baton Rouge, one of the best sports writers in America, covers LSU, but also knows the big picture of college football. Back-to-back 10-win seasons at LSU, but there have been some changes on the defensive staff, and got the win in the bowl game, 35-31 over Wisconsin. LSU may finish in the top 10, but still kind of give us a progress report after 2 years of Brian Kelly.
Well, it's been 2 years. You have to say they've been successful overall. I mean, there's definitely been some ups and some downs, but back-to-back 10-win seasons, that doesn't happen every day at LSU. Won the SEC West in 2022, a Heisman Trophy winner this past season with Jaden Daniels. Won both bowl games and finished ranked. So yeah, it's something to build on, and it's something when I think we have a tendency to think of LSU football as this being like a continuation from 2019, when they won the national championship and had this fabulous season, went 15-0 like Michigan just did. But but really, this is coming off of 2020 and 2021 when LSU was a combined 11 and 12. So those 2 seasons with finishing up against Kansas State in the Texas Bowl when only had like 38 or 39 available scholarship players, and they've still been recovering from that. So obviously this year LSU seemed like half a team. The offense was as good as it could be. They finished number 1 in the nation in the FBS in total offense and scoring. And then the defense was, by LSU standards, historically bad. I mean, it was ranked in the hundreds in some categories. Just really poor, and especially by LSU standards. So where people expect a little more from the defense. This is the program with the Chinese Bandits and the DBU and the Honey Badger and things like that. And so they didn't get it this year. So a lot of work to do, but certainly a foundation of stability has been laid in the first 2 years that they can win. But now, obviously, the dynamic changes for LSU and for everyone. With the expansion of the college football playoff, now it's going to be pass-fail for programs like LSU. Did you make the 12-team playoff or did you not? If you did, okay, it's at least a good season. If not, you came up short. And so that's the reality that's facing Brian Kelly and LSU now going into year 3. It's very clear, very well defined of what they have to do in the future. And I think they're moving towards being the kind of program that can contend for a playoff spot each year.
Looking at Texas got into the playoff this year. That was their first time. But of the 133 Division I teams in the 10 years of the 4-team CFP, what do we have? 16 teams make it. And there were 5, Clemson, Alabama, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Georgia that made it probably more than anybody. And LSU made it twice. But I like that. Now on, it's going to be pass or fail. A program like LSU, certainly Alabama and Georgia. If you didn't make the 12-team playoff, it's really going to be tough to justify this. Matt House, he's gone as defensive coordinator. I think of LSU, I think of great defensive linemen, 2 and 3 deep on the front 7 depth chart. You think of Booger McFarland, Marcus Spears. Where are those guys now like that? I know they're hard to find and everybody's trying to get them, but LSU usually has them lined up to come there.
That's right, Rob, and that's what makes the good teams. I mean, that's to me, great defensive line play is one of the things that has made the SEC so dominant. Over the last 20 years. They have guys who can dominate you up front and track you down. They got the speed and the size, and that's been lacking a little bit for LSU. Now they've had some good players. Mekhi Wingo was a 3rd-team All-American in 2022, and he came back this year, but he was hurt all the year. And then Mason Smith came back, and he was after missing all of 22 with a knee injury, and he never seemed to be quite as effective. They've got some dudes. They just have maybe no one played. It seemed up to their ability, for LSU. But I tell you, going back, it remains to be seen what Mekhi Wingo does for next season. He clearly didn't seem to. Someone caught him on video after the bowl game, and he seemed like he didn't want to talk to Matt House. So at least his body language was very interesting, and he still has to make a decision that's official. A lot of people think he's going to go pro, but maybe they can convince him otherwise. And Mason Smith, he's a tremendous talent, but he probably, to me, could use another year of proving himself in college. Savion Jones, they've got some guys, and some help is coming. Dominic McKinley committed on New Year's Eve. He flipped from Texas A&M to LSU, a top player in the state out of Lafayette. And so there are some guys coming, but it's not where it needs to be. No, it's even in 2024, they're going to be looking to maybe add somebody in the portal or bring up some new talent, and it's again yet a new coach. They've had one defensive line coach after another from the transition from Ed Orgeron to Brian Kelly, and then Jimmy Lindsay, one of the coaches who was not retained, fell ill before the 2023 season and didn't coach all year. So it's been a less than ideal situation for LSU on the defensive line. And you're right. I think it's critical that it improves there because that's got to be your foundation for a good defense.
Nussmeier played in the bowl game at quarterback. I mean, he came in highly touted. His dad's a coach. Everybody knows him.
Right.
What about LSU next year heading into 24? What kind of – they're LSU, so they're going to be picked high just because of the tradition and their track record of – I mean, back-to-back 10-win seasons, a Heisman Trophy winner. I mean, any school has Heisman Trophy winners. Now 3 of them, and that's 2 in the last 4 years. Or 5 years, whatever. That's a strong resume. I mean, and another thing too, after that, in-state recruiting. How strong is LSU right now in keeping the top players in that state? Because there's always a ton of great players down there.
Yeah, I think we saw a big change in the recruiting success or approach or whatever for LSU from the first recruiting cycle under Kelly. They've signed 28 players in the early signing period, and 24 of them were from that region that LSU traditionally does well in. That's from East Texas, of course, the whole state of Louisiana, into Mississippi, southern part of Mississippi, Alabama, a little bit of Georgia, Florida. Yeah, that Gulf Coast region. It's a lot different from the approach that obviously Kelly had at Notre Dame, where they recruit nationally all the time. But this has always been the most successful for LSU. And it probably wasn't the best year in Louisiana. Overall, it's not as good as it's going to be in 2025. But they still wound up, right now, they have the 7th ranked recruiting class according to on3.com overall. So people were a little worried, but it bumped up late. And, that's the kind of class you can win with. And going forward, the recruiting is off to a great start for 2025. They just got a commitment from Bryce Underwood, the number 1 quarterback and player in the country, out of Michigan. They have the number 1 running back out of New Orleans, Harlem Berry, number 1 running back in the country, and the number 1 wide receiver in the country, DeCorian Moore from Texas, who's been committed since August, I believe. So recruiting is off to a very good start for LSU. As for Nussmeier, he played very well. I mean, he started slow, but he played better in the bowl game. Ended up throwing for 395 yards. Didn't run, didn't get sacked, and didn't run the ball, which is obviously a big departure, a big difference in the style of offense, the way it's going to look from Jaden Daniels, who of course was the leading rusher in the country among quarterbacks. But Garrett, and of course, he led them on that 98-yard game-winning drive near the end of the game. That was pretty epic. That was good. That was really good stuff. And I think he grew in the game. Yeah, he hadn't played. That was his first college start in 3 years. He's a third-year sophomore, and he hadn't played all that much. Didn't play as much in 23 as he did in 22 because Jaden had to stay in there and keep pitching because the defense was giving up so many points. But he looked really good. Obviously, he's losing Malik Neighbors, who declared for the draft. We expect Brian Thomas is going to go as well. But Kyron Lacey will be back, and they'll have some other targets. So the cupboard won't be bare. Had lost a lot of running backs. Had a lot of Logan Diggs entered the portal, and that's one of those, Rob. You just sometimes kids enter the portal, you just scratch your head and wonder, what is the thinking there? But he's into the portal, and but they'll still be. It would be unfair to expect LSU to be number 1 in the country in total offense next season. But I think they'll still be pretty potent.
Well, I mean, I'll draw a comparison. And Garrett Nussmeier, third-year sophomore, staying in the program, being part of the culture, buying in to Carson Beck at Georgia. Remember last year, Kirby Smart, when asked before the season about Carson Beck, I don't know if he was kidding, tonguing. What is he? I think he's been here 3 years, but he's bought in. He loves. That's what I think is great about him. I think I'm not saying he's better than Jaden Daniels or might not be better eventually, but that guy's got a football IQ that's off the charts. I mean, he's the son of a coach. He's a pretty damn good athlete, and he's going to have a lot of weapons around him. If I'm an LSU fan, I'm excited. Frank Duffy's texting me right now, just and listening, and said he goes, I'd love to be on with Scott because he, like so many LSU fans all over the country, if they have an ounce of gray matter between their ears, they're going to be following what you say, what you talk about. We had Tony Barnhart on the show last week talking about his book, The 19 of Green. You and Tony Barnhart are why we should never, ever allow newspapers, the print media, ever to go away. But y'all are so good at evolving, and I appreciate that so much, because people say, would Coach Bryant win in today's world? Would Charlie Mack win in today's world? Would Ralph Jordan win? Yeah, they would adapt. That's what great people do. But now, you remember back 25, 30 years ago, some radio stations, maybe in Baton Rouge or Memphis or Atlanta, wouldn't allow the sports writers from the local papers to be on. I mean, Ron Higgins was this bigger than life mythical figure in the print media. I knew him from going to mass with him up at St. Louis Catholic Church in Memphis. And of course, he's back in Louisiana where it's just in him. But God, it's so refreshing to read great writing. And I love, Dan Barron told me this. He said, get writers on as often as you can. They're your best guests because they think about what they're saying because they've written it. What are some of the big stories that you see coming in the off season? Coaches conventions are going on. There's stuff happening here and there, but what are you going to be looking forward to writing about? What would you like to see happen?
Well, from an LSU perspective, they still have to find an offensive coordinator. That's big. Obviously, Joe Sloan, the quarterback's coach, called the plays in the bowl game. He was co-offensive coordinator with Cortez Hankton. He seems to be the favorite, but maybe Brian Kelly is someone else. Brian Kelly, he's been head coach for more than 30 years. The branches of his coaching tree extend out pretty far. So we'll see what he does there. And of course, he's got the defensive coordinator in Blake Baker from Missouri, but he still has to replace the three other position coaches. So that's big. Still waiting to see. I cover the SEC spring meeting every year in Destin. Somebody's got to go, Rob. Somebody's got to go.
Yeah, somebody's got to go.
And there's not as much beach time as people think. People always give me a hard time. There's a lot of waiting in hotel lobbies. But anyway, the SEC still has to come through with a permanent scheduling format. Settle on 8 games or expand to 9 games. Who teams are going to play. It's this year's schedule was just a Band-Aid. They could do another Band-Aid schedule for 25, but eventually they got to come up with a format, and it's going to be very interesting to see. Does ESPN, ABC, Disney get their financial house in order and offer the SEC more money for Texas and OU joining, which they are not bound to do? I think that's part of the equation for the reason they went with an 8-game schedule this year. I know at LSU, people tell me that 9 games is eventually going to happen. And LSU's been a staunch proponent of 9 SEC games. They want to play one less, rent a win, for lack of a better term, at home to improve the home gate. I know, like I said, they are adamant that this is eventually going to happen, but it hadn't happened yet, and it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on. And of course, this first year of the college football playoff is going to be so interesting. What this means for the bowls, like the Sugar Bowl and stuff like that. I got to tell you, they're concerned at the Sugar Bowl about their future and about their place in the playoff. A lot of people say, "Oh, they shouldn't be," but it's expanded playoff means more money, means more expected of the bowls to pony up, there's newer cities with newer stadiums that are wanting to be part of that year 6. Nashville, of course, is building a new dome stadium, right? Las Vegas, you got to believe the national championship game will be in Las Vegas soon. As the Super Bowl's already there. We see that. Just saw the championship game in Houston. We could see it, maybe gravitating somewhere else. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's hard for me to picture college football without the Sugar Bowl or the Rose Bowl. Those games being relevant, but it's those on-campus games are going to be playoff games are going to be pretty exciting too, and that's going to be an interesting thing to see how they balance those between the bowl games, because the bowls have always been part of college football landscape, but clearly the landscape is changing, and it's changing in a big way.
Yeah, it is, and the thought of the Sugar Bowl not being one of the big ones is hard to imagine. I've been to the Sugar Bowl a number of times. I mean, New Orleans as a city, New Orleans and Atlanta a lot bigger. They do a great job. They get it, but so does New Orleans. And you ain't going to get better food anywhere in the world. I've been to 26 countries, and all I can tell you is, and I've been to France, I've been to Paris. Food's good, but the people aren't as fun. I mean, you cannot beat the people in Louisiana. I mean, my great-great-grandfather used to live in Thibodeau for a long time. He was the first Episcopal bishop in Louisiana for about 20 years. I'm glad you brought that up, and you will be one of the driving forces because you've got to have New Orleans be part of it. They have given so much of themselves, the people down there, people on that Sugar Bowl committee. Remember what Nick Saban said? He goes, the first meeting I had when I got to LSU back in 2000 in the locker room, to a man and a manager, to every assistant coach and myself, as he said about himself, the number one goal was to get to the Sugar Bowl. I can't even think of a life college football player without this. That bowl is so critical to the history. We wouldn't have college football history without it. I guarantee you that.
Well, it's I agree. I mean, it's one of the oldest bowl games. Obviously, the Rose Bowl is the oldest, and the sugar, the orange, the cotton. Those were the big four. Back when we were kids, that's when college football season ended, right? But so much is changing, Rob. I mean, obviously,
it is.
Traditionally we thought of, and I still think of the college football season ending on New Year's Day. And now it's going to be the championship game next year is going to be on January 20th. The quarterfinals are you have the first round games in mid-December, the quarterfinal games around New Year's Day. The Sugar and the Rose were semifinals this year. They're going to be quarterfinal games next year. I forget which bowls are going to be the semis. But I want to say the cotton and the orange, but I don't hold me to that. And then of course, those are going to be around this weekend. And then the championship game is going to be January 20th. Which is before on the Monday, right in the midst of the NFL playoffs, which are obviously about to start. So it's very different. And I tell you, this whole thing with realignment and conferences potentially going away or having to reinvent themselves, like the Pac-12's had to, like the Big 12 did. Everyone was writing the Big 12 off a couple of years ago when the announcement came that Texas and OU were joining the SEC. There's been a lot of trampling on tradition, and I hear people around here say, I don't care about the Apple Cup, Washington say, yeah, well, somebody does. I don't care about Bedlam, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Well, somebody does. And those things are important to college sports. And look, I cover a lot of college sports. We talk a lot about football, but we're getting the season where now obviously women's basketball is really big here at LSU.
Yeah.
The gymnastics team at LSU, they drew 12,000 fans the other night. They're a nationally ranked program year in and year out. They've got Olympians and future Olympians on their roster. And so these teams are going to have to go in these new coast to coast conferences. Maryland's LSU baseball team, obviously, is the number 2 sport here at LSU. Football's 1, baseball's 2, and it's number 1 for a lot of people. But the Maryland baseball team is going to have to go to Oregon for a conference series, pretty soon. And no one, it seems to have thought about all that. It seems like just this headlong rush to not be left without a chair when the music stops playing. Has led to some real trampling on tradition and history, and it's not going to stop. I mean, there are a lot of people who will tell you that college football is going to coalesce into something that with 40, 50, 60 teams at the top playing for the national championship. And then, so that number would not include everyone in the SEC, for example. It's going to be very, very interesting. And you want to be well positioned for where you should be. But it's a fascinating time to cover college athletics. I will say that, but it's not all for the good, and it's not all it's not all bad, but it's not all for the good either.
Yeah, but I like what you said, and I go back to what, and I don't know him. I'm sure you've been Lee Fitting from ESPN, program director. I think one of their top people. That's one thing he said was the challenge in November of keeping people in the Deep South interested in something like the Apple Cup game or the Civil War, Oregon and Oregon State. And, Oregon, Rich Brooks left in 94, 77 to 94, 18 years. Toward the end, he had them in the Rose Bowl doing a lot of good things. Then you had Mike Bellotti for 14 years. Then Chip Kelly for 4 years. And then, Heffigan, the in between. And then you had Willie Taggart for a year, and they got him a good one in Dan Lanning. Is Dan Lanning from the Boot Heel of Missouri or the South? I mean, a lot of people, and an Arkansas fan I was watching the game with last night say, man, what about Dan Lanning coming back and coaching Arkansas one day if it doesn't work out for Sam Pittman or whatever? But again, it's good when college football is good around the country. I'm obviously partial to the SEC, and as a journalist, you cover LSU, but you tell it like you see it. I think you've got so much to write about. I don't know if there's enough time to get it all in. There's so many story angles, but man, the bowl games and the people that play them, where do the fans, we just got a few minutes, almost out, but where do the fans stand in the middle of all this right now? What's their role? What can they be doing to save college football from just becoming something they don't want it to be?
That's a very good question, and I think the fans. I think people are thinking of the fans sometimes in terms of like a school like LSU or the other schools that want 9 games, that they want a better draw for the fans, and then at the same time it's like, oh, we'll focus on all these other issues and we'll think of the fans later. Like, one of the things about the expanded college football playoff, Rob, is if you have, you could have teams kind of like in the NCAA tournament, have three consecutive weekends, well, not consecutive weekends, but 3 straight stages of the playoff, where you're in bowl games. You have to travel and go forward, or if you start on campus, you're talking about 4 stages of the playoff, and if you go on the road for all those, it would be hard to follow your team. It'd be a huge financial investment, and obviously, all these coaches. Hey, it's great for the coaches, and it's great the players are getting NIL money now if NIL is done the right way. But I mean, in theory, it's great. But somebody's got to pay for all that, and obviously the ticket prices aren't going down, and the cost of the Coke at the concession stands not going down, or the hat you buy at the yes. and so that's a big concern, is that keeping people engaged, and like as you say, Saturday night in Death Valley or Saturday afternoon in Columbus, Ohio. These are always going to be special things to a lot of people, but it's endangered a little bit, because people are. It's so much pressure, and it's so easy to watch the game on TV at home. I didn't go to the national championship game this year, but last year, so it's a different experience when you watch it at home compared to being there. But in some ways, it's good, in some ways, it's bad. I still like being there, and I imagine there's a lot of people who do. But it's a lot asked of the fan in terms of time commitment and financial commitment to go to all these things and to keep going in the playoff, or to go make these far-flung road games or something like that. And it's LSU still has a season ticket base of in the upper 60s, 60-something thousand, but has it got a little more corporate? Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
Is it Tiger Stadium? Let's be frank, doesn't truly fill up, but for many games, this coming season they got a great home schedule with Alabama and Oklahoma and Ole Miss. I think the Tiger Stadium will be full for those games. It won't be full for Nicholls State. It won't be totally full. And so they got to figure out a way to keep fans back in the stands, because everyone, including the TV people, want to be doing a game that is in front of a full stadium that's rocking, that has all the tradition that you typically see in Baton Rouge on a Saturday night, or in Tuscaloosa on a Saturday afternoon, or in Gainesville, Florida, when things are going good, or Athens, Georgia. Yeah. So it's those things are important. I think the fans have been kind of left out of the equation here by the people running college athletics and the people in college administration in general. I think they have been left out of the equation a little bit in terms of what's best for them. And in this. Hopefully, once the dust kind of settles, with all this expansion and change, they'll come back around and remember the people who are paying the freight, and that's the fans.
Yeah. And the thing is, we're so emotionally attached to our colleges. We meet our wives, our husbands there for the ladies, and we have kids that grow up going there. It's kind of like, even if you divorce someone, if you got children and grandchildren, you're always family. And that's the emotional attachment is we are to college. That's what I feel. I don't know what I am. I'm crazy, but I'm as optimistic as ever because it's always darkest before dawn. And we're going to find a way to make it work. But we've got to have the great writers, the storytellers like you and Tony Barnhart. And because of what you do, you write about it and we can read it. And it's like lifting weights with our brains. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate and respect your time. Let people know how they can follow you and keep up with you. Tiger fan or not, you need to follow Scott Rabalais.
Well, thanks, Rob. We're at theadvocate.com or NOLA.com. We have two websites that get you the LSU coverage. And I'm on Twitter or X, whatever you call it now, at Rabalais ADV. ADV is short for advocate. And you can go to sports and LSU and scroll down, and you see my name, and you can click on my columns or my gymnastics story I wrote yesterday or whatever. But I love college football season. I hate when it's over, but I also like this time of year too because you get to cover different things, and the Masters is coming up in 3 months. That's my very favorite week of the year. And I've got the Olympics on the agenda too this summer. Yeah. So we're 199 days from the opening ceremonies. So we're going to start having a lot of stories about the Louisiana athletes who are going to be in the Olympics this year. So we're looking forward to that too. But thanks for having me, Rob. I appreciate you having me as well. It's always an engaging conversation.
Hey, look, man, I appreciate everything I get out of you. And the Masters, those Buddy Martin and Lauren Smith stories about the Masters. Oh my God, we have Lauren on every day during the Masters. It doesn't get any better. Looking forward to following you on all that. Look forward to our next visit. We'll take a quick break. Be right back with Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, after this.
From Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on the final segment. Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, only $48 a year, folks. Be a subscriber. You will learn all about Alabama in all sports, but you will learn a lot about college football. And the forums that they have on there are lively and engaging, not just when Alabama wins, but in those rare occasions lately when they lose, as Gary Harris talks about so much, Tide 100.9 and WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa. It's epic. Those are some incredible conversations. Okay. Good point here from Rob Anderson, Valdosta, Georgia, Titletown, USA. If major schools are worried about season ticket buyers, quit scheduling 3 muffin home games each season. Well, that's a diametrically opposing argument, Shoney. you've got to get 6 wins to be bowl eligible. And if you're playing just a grit and grind schedule every week, being bowl eligible, you got to say it. Now, 88 of the 133 Division I teams this year were bowl eligible. There are 44 bowl games. Now, there'll be some attrition. Some of them won't make it. I think the Bahama Bowl is gone. I mean, that was a fun trip for people to take. But I think going forward, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the 12-team playoff. What bowl games are going to remain relevant? Which ones are going to go the way of the ivory-billed woodpecker and the Bachman's warbler, along with the dodo bird? Yes, I said the Bachman's warbler. There hasn't been one of those seen in more than 70 years, just like the ivory-billed woodpecker. I mean, are you kidding me? In the White River National Refuge, 150,000 acres, and the Cache River National Wildlife Refuge in Arkansas, all they've got was some old grainy video. That was a pileated woodpecker. There are no ivory-billed woodpeckers, but a lot of people made a lot of money selling their land. And even Gene's Barbecue over in Brinkley, Arkansas, had on the menu, I loved it, the double meat bacon cheddar cheeseburger, the ivory-billed woodpecker double meat bacon cheddar cheeseburger. And if you ate the ivory-billed woodpecker burger at Gene's Barbecue in Brinkley, Arkansas, you got a certificate from the owner, Gene the Priest. Man, you knew you were something when that happened. Mike Keith is listening. Don Johnson, y'all know what I'm talking about. Gene's Barbecue. Frank LaManna would always say, stay away from the barbecue. They had a back room where you could take your own cooler in there. It was a lot of fun on a Friday night. And Gene would always hand out cheese. He talked about it was fine Wisconsin. It was government cheese, folks. It was government cheese. You know, there's a band called Government Mule. Why don't we start one out of Brinkley, Arkansas called Government Cheese? And he would give you this cheese and the crackers and this barbecue sauce, and you'd be stoved up, man, for days after eating that stuff. I'll leave it at that. But I love what's going on off the field. Scott Rabalais, Baton Rouge, the Advocate, follow him. Keep up with what he's saying, because he and Tony Barnhart, these great writers, and what we're doing on this show is bringing them to the table 6 days a week, 25 times a month, over 300 times a year, getting the stories out there. You want to be in front of the story. You don't want to be getting snowplowed. You want to be in front of it. Get out of the way of the traffic. But there are a lot of stories in college football. You know, there's a concern among some people that if Jim Harbaugh goes to the NFL, will Michigan make a run on Brian Kelly, LSU's coach, to be their next head coach? Brian Kelly's not leaving LSU. He's got $100 million. He's got a big deal. Scott Woodward put together a hell of a financial package for Brian Kelly. I don't see him going anywhere. LSU, back-to-back 10-win seasons. You say, well, golly, that's not good. Hey, I remember well, 89 to 94, LSU had 6 consecutive losing seasons. Does anybody remember the end of Mike Archer? And then Curly Hallman? Wow. Those were some rough years. And then the Magic is back. 95, Jerry DiNardo comes in. That was the weirdest hire. Tennessee beat Vanderbilt in 94, 65-0. And later that night, Jerry DiNardo is the new head football coach at LSU. That was wild. But he got Kevin Falk out of Karen Crow, Lafayette, Louisiana, in there. A lot of that changed. Rob, how about a shout out to the South Dakota State Jackrabbits on winning their second FCS national title the FCS programs like them and North Dakota State play some good football with tremendous coaches. I absolutely agree. We pheasant hunted for years up in South Dakota in Chamberlain, Kimball, had friends that hunted up in Iroquois, Dallas, Winter. You get over there in where Pierre is in the middle of the state. Unbelievable. But you're right. They play some damn good football up there in South Dakota. And remember, anytime you're ever calling a credit card service center, it's probably in either Sioux Falls or Rapid City. And you can drive from one end of South Dakota to the other. And I'll be shocked if you see more than one or two state troopers. But the great state of South Dakota, absolutely agree with you, Kerry J. Rodney Orr, Tyler, and Siler. Rodney, let me say something. Said, you still want me to come on after football season? Rodney, the sun never sets on the British Empire. That was always said about the 52 countries that were part of it. The sun never sets on college football season on sidelines. We keep it going. The eternal flame. There's always a lot to talk about with Alabama football. And Rodney Orr, we love having you on here every week. Folks, be a subscriber, $48 a year. He doesn't raise the prices. It's not like the cost of going to college nowadays when, it's $500,000 for a 5-year, master's degree. Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider, one of the absolute best and genuinely good people that you'll have. Rodney, we watched the national championship game last night. There wasn't an SEC team in there. I'm wearing the Michigan hat. I told TK, Jeff Tickenen, my friend, and David Hager, and all the Michigan fans that I know, I said, I'll wear your hat for you. Y'all got the national championship. But if anything, I think it's just going to fuel and inspire the SEC schools. Say, no, we want that spot back. And it's going to be a lot of fun, the discussions between now and kickoff of next season, and until another SEC team claims the national championship. Am I right, wrong, or somewhere between Jennings and Jones?
I don't know where Jennings and Jones is. So I don't know.
That's that Jamie Johnson song. Remember they tried to describe his music style as somewhere between Jennings and Jones. You know where he's from, don't you?
I have no idea.
Jamie Johnson, the great country music singer, Enterprise, Alabama, in the wire.
Is that right? That shows how much I keep up with music, Rob. When you get my age and you got 12 grandkids and you got a lot going on, you lose touch with a lot of things.
Well, you're kind of busy with Tyler Insider.
Yeah. Now, what was your question? Let me get back to that
about the SEC. And first off, there's never a moment that we don't have a lot to talk about with Alabama football and SEC. But don't you think it's going to inspire these SEC schools to just double down, to get back, to claim that spot? Because there's going to be a lot of national folks that will have fun with this, sticking it in the SEC's face. The Big Ten is the alpha. It's going to be fun. I mean, the narrative, because the SEC isn't going anywhere. I just checked these recruiting classes. Georgia's 1, Bama's 2, Texas 3, Auburn 7, LSU 8, Oklahoma 9. Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. They're not going anywhere. And I mean, it just was one of those years. I mean, Michigan ended up having the best team. They played better than, anyone else. And, Washington had a great year too, obviously. And, the SEC, Georgia, Alabama, clearly the top two. I still think, now I'm talking about program wise. I'm not talking necessarily about this season. I would say this, and I'm trying to be as, look at this as unbiased as possible right now. I think Georgia probably still has the best overall program right now.
Yeah.
And I think Alabama's probably just behind them. And people might throw out, well, what about Texas or what? Michigan had a good year. Okay, they've been to the playoffs 3 straight years. It's going to be real interesting, Rob, to see how they rebound after. They're going to lose a lot of players.
Yeah.
So when you look at a program, you got to look at it and say, okay, which programs can lose a lot of players and rebound. That they're loaded. They're not really rebuilding as much as they're reloading. We've heard that forever.
You're right.
And I think that's how you judge a program. So I would say right now, I honestly, I give Georgia, even though Alabama won, beat Georgia. I think overall Kirby's got a little bit better program right now than Alabama. But I think it's, Texas is on. I really believe this. I don't know what you think, but I think of all the teams that I saw, the 4 teams in this playoff, the one that I would say, if I was a fan of that school, I'd say Texas really blew an opportunity. I mean, they have a lot more talent than Washington, in my opinion, especially at the line of scrimmage. And they were down double digits, late in the game. I'm just, I realize they came to Tuscaloosa and beat an Alabama team that really wasn't good at the time. But anyway, that's just kind of my take on the top 4. I think DeBoer did an incredible job at Washington. He's an incredible coach. Look at his record. And I think, give Michigan credit, man. They were physical. Rob, I could see it in the Alabama game.
Yeah.
Especially late in the game. They wanted it. They wanted it. I mean, and I'm not saying Alabama didn't, but I mean, you could see Michigan was really hungry, man. Yeah. And that says a lot.
Yeah. I mean, they look like they have a lot of fun. They love each other. They love their coach. And whatever people want to say about Jim Harbaugh, they can say it. Free speech is alive and well. The First Amendment is ardently and fervently revered on sidelines. But Jason Caldwell was on in the first hour from Auburn Undercover, and he said, there wasn't a great football team. There wasn't an absolutely dominant football team in college football this year that was just way better than everybody else. He said the thing about Michigan was they were great at what they were good at.
Yeah. I think cool whoever you said, Jason. Caldwell?
Jason Caldwell.
Yeah, at Auburn Tigers or whatever it is.
Auburn Undercover. You used to be inside the Auburn Tigers. ITAT. That was easy to remember.
Yeah. But he's right on with that, in my opinion. I mean, I just think Michigan was, just like going into that Alabama-Michigan game, there were a lot of Alabama fans, a lot of people on Twitter and said, they're slow, they're this, we're gonna skull drag them, whatever they say. And I was like, wait a minute now, This is a really fundamentally sound football team, This is a team that's going to play fundamentally sound. You're not going to just line up and dominate this team if you think that's not happening. Yeah. And we saw what happened. I mean, they made some mistakes, Michigan, especially in the kicking game against Alabama. But I mean, they're just a really fundamentally sound football team. They kind of remind. I know this is going way back. They kind of remind me of some of those Penn State teams under Joe Paterno. Yeah. You remember the team that beat Miami for the national championship? What was it? The 1986 season?
86
I think it was.
Fiesta Bowl. They moved it to Friday night. Yeah. 14-10.
Yeah. I mean, I just, kind of like one of those types of teams. They may not be flashy, but they're just so fundamentally sound. They're physical. They're well coached and all of those different cliches, but they're all true. They're all true. They're all true. Hey, but listen, I let me just say this because I know you really like Kevin Steele.
Yeah, I do.
The word is, of course, as you know, that he's stepping down. This is it for him. And, I was told, Rob, actually, last year when he took the job, somebody told me that he basically told Saban that, initially when Saban approached him about coming back to Alabama, he said, Coach, look, I got a nice boat down here. I'm on the end of this deal. I don't have a lot of time left. And, he decided to come up here for a year or two. I was originally told he'd be here probably 2 years. So this stepping down probably isn't much of a surprise. I think he's, was ready to call it a career.
Yeah. I hate it though. I mean, he's not old but he wants to go do other things. I understand that, but now who's going to be his replacement? That's the question, because that could set off a number of changes around the country. Because Nick Saban will have a lot of people wanting to work for him. Got any names?
I think, because I know you probably have some Alabama fans out there wondering or thinking about this. I'm going to guess, and again, I don't have 100% confirmation on this, so let me be very clear. This is just kind of my feeling, my speculation, and thoughts on some things I've heard. It would not surprise me at all. I think Travaris Robinson is there's a very good chance he's going to be. I would think. My guess is he may be your next defensive coordinator at Alabama.
Yeah.
That would be my guess. As we're talking right now, I know that Charlie Potter on 3. Charlie's a really good reporter.
Yeah.
He put out that I think he put out that DJ Durkin, who was formerly he's been at Texas A&M as a defense coordinator. DJ Durkin, really good coach.
Was it
Saban
Maryland?
really Saban really has always liked him a lot. You remember they had whatever happened up there at Maryland, and he got in hot water, and Saban brought him down here right after that to kind of do some. I don't know if it was analysis or just be around the program, whatever it was. But you knew then that Saban really had a high degree of respect for him as a coach.
Yeah.
So if he came in and coached outside linebackers, that probably wouldn't be surprising. In fact, I think Charlie reported that he was going to interview today, so that really wouldn't surprise me if that happened. But with T-Rob, again, I think T-Rob would be the defensive coordinator is what I think. So, we'll see.
Man, he's a good one out of Miami. And I know he came to Auburn in 99. And, the first game he ever played for Auburn was playing Appalachian State. And Auburn, the deep snapper, punted. I snapped it over the punter's head. And I remember T-Rob recovered the ball, but it didn't go into the end zone. Auburn barely escaped alive against App State in his first game, and hell of a player. I always remember that. I was up in New Madrid, Missouri, dove hunting that night and listening to the game. Now, looking as you go into spring practice, what's going on at the quarterback position? We know Tyler Buckner has gone back to Notre Dame to try to be on the lacrosse team. And you've got, what's Ty Simpson going to do? I hadn't seen anything yet, and I may have missed it, but what's going to happen?
He's coming back.
Dylan Lonergan, too.
Dylan Lonergan, Julian Sayin, the 5-star freshman, is going to be here or is here. He's been here since, he got here in December, late December bowl practices.
All right.
So you got a pretty stout quarterback room, and look, if you're a quarterback looking to transfer, you're probably going to want to do it about the middle of the year. So the fact that all these guys are staying is good, because you would think that most of them would have the mindset of saying, hey, look, if I'm deciding now and I'm deciding to stay, then I better be prepared to stick it out a year, because it's really hard to transfer after spring practice as a quarterback, I think, especially, and get acclimated and, to a new school. I think it's really hard. So with all that said, sounds like this room's going to stay intact for now. But I think one reason Ty, did this and decided to stay, I think one reason is he thinks he can compete for the job. And I'm not just talking about year after next. I'm talking about this coming year.
Yeah.
I think Milroe had some really impressive improvement that he made throughout the season. He really did. But, I'd say, there were several games near the tail end where he was, still showed a lot of the same inconsistencies that he had. I think he's got a lot of improvement to make. And can one of those guys beat him out? I don't know. I'm not predicting that, but I am saying I do think Ty thinks he's staying because he thinks he has a chance to do it.
Wow. Again, we just reeled off Dylan Lonergan, the guy from California, and Ty Simpson, and Jalen Milroe's coming back. That's pretty damn stacked quarterback room. Give me an A, B, C, D, or F grade for Tommy Rees in his first year as offensive coordinator at Alabama.
Well, there's probably a lot of people who are a lot more critical of him than I am. I think Reese was facing a difficult situation first year as a offense coordinator here at Alabama.
Yeah.
Number one, there's always an adjustment period, I think, in that situation. But number two is the offensive line at the beginning of the year was a work in progress. I mean, they had a lot of talent, but you knew they had a lot of room to grow. And I think the quarterback situation was just what Nick Saban said from the very beginning. And he said, we don't know. We got it's like a cake, we got to let it bake and see who ends up being the guy. Well, that tells you all you need to know. When you're 2 and 3 weeks into fall camp and Nick Saban is saying, the guy who starts the first game, I've never heard Nick Saban say that. The guy who starts the first game may not be the quarterback down the road, And so it was a work in progress. So I say all that to say, to me, I would, I'm going to be maybe some people say might be a little generous here. I give Tommy Reese an A because I think he was shorthanded, a lot of things that he had to overcome. And I thought he did a really nice job. I really did. Did he do a perfect job? I don't know, but I think he did a really good job. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, you're very level-headed. You're like a good bond trader, good stock trader, analyst. Godly, man. 12 grandchildren. I talk to you a lot on the air, off the air. You're very good at juggling a lot of things, as they say down in Utah, Alabama, simultaneously at the same time. No, look, this is the May Veterinary Clinic Tuscaloosa Tighter Insider Report brought to you by May Veterinary Clinic. Dr. Wayne May started it all back in 1964. 2 veterinary clinics, Tuscaloosa and Northport, open every day of the week. They have a dog and cat daycare facility called Camp May. It's open every day of the week, but on Sundays, the clinics are not open, but the drop-off and pickup are from 3 to 5 p.m. They have an outdoor pool, connecting cat condos. Dr. Waller May, Dr. Guy May, all their fellow veterinarians, the vet techs, the people, everybody in there, and they have sidelines on the flat screen color TV live on Google TV and YouTube while we're broadcasting. So appreciate them and everybody at the May Veterinary Clinic. All right, real quick, let's do a little history here. Give me your favorite all-time Alabama linebacker from XL, Alabama.
Oh, Leroy?
There you go. All right, got a question for you. Because this is a question from me. Is XL in the wiregrass? Because I always call 331 the line of demarcation in Alabama from Montgomery down to Flomaton or Florala. And anything west of 331 is just LA, lower Alabama. Everything east of 331 is the wiregrass. Where does XL fall in that?
I don't have any idea where XL is.
See, it's this mythical town. All right, now give me the next one. Give me your top 5, and then we'll tag out. Give me your top 5 all-time Alabama running backs.
Oh wow. Oh man, that's hard. Okay, so throw Mark Ingram and Derrick Henry in there. They won Heisman trophies, right?
Okay.
I mean, you could say Derrick Henry because, he ran for 2,200 plus yards. And I mean, that's an incredible season. That's Herschel Walker type stuff. Better. All right.
Better.
So I think Sean Alexander would be in there. All the old time Alabama fans would say, what about Johnny Musso? I mean, anyway, if Johnny Musso was a great player in his time, I'll put it to you that way. So, man, I tell you who might have been the best of all time, or certainly right there among the top 3 or 4, had he not been injured. Rob, Kerry Good.
Yep.
Kerry Good. All right. So Bobby Humphreys fits in there somewhere. I mean, I'm throwing out these guys, and I'm
Sean Alexander.
Sean Alexander is certainly one of them. The greatest performance, one of the greatest performances in Alabama football history against LSU in 1996 is a redshirt freshman. Comes off the bench, has touchdown runs of 72 and 73 yards, runs for 291 yards on 20 carries, 4 touchdowns. I know. How much time you got, Rob? You got 40 seconds? You got 40 seconds?
We're good. We can go a little longer.
Okay. So I knew a player back in that time. I was it was my first year with Tighter Insider, starting Tighter Insider. I talked to his mother. He was a highly recruited quarterback. I won't mention his name. You'll know him if I said it. Highly recruited quarterback at the time. They were Alabama fans. And she said, so Jackie Sherrill came to visit us after the LSU game, who was recruiting my son.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama was playing Mississippi State. You'll remember this. Mississippi State, 1996, the week after Sean Alexander's, explosion, 291 yards, a school record. Yeah. And said, Sherrill sat there and said his worst fear heading into that. You remember Mississippi State beat Alabama 17-16. And that was a major upset. But anyway, Jackie Sherrill said his worst fear going into that game was that Alabama was going to give the ball to Sean Alexander 25 times.
Yeah.
He said if Alabama gives the ball to Sean Alexander 25 times, no way Mississippi State wins the game. Alabama, of course, Woody McCorvey, I think, was the offensive coordinator at the time. Sean carried the ball like 10 or 11 times in that game for over 100 yards. I think he had a touchdown in that game too. Rob, think about that. You have a guy like that and you don't give him the ball.
Yeah.
How do you not do that? I mean,
Yeah.
But Sean Alexander, that's a quick Sean Alexander story for you.
He was great from Florence, Kentucky, Boone County High School. I remember that well. Not too far from Cincinnati.
Hey, let me say this too. He ran for over 3,100 yards or 3,500 yards his senior year. You remember that? He scored 54 touchdowns his senior year at Boone County. You know what Pat Dye said? He said 3,500 yards in Kentucky ain't 3,500 yards in Alabama. If you remember, that was Pat Dye's comment about that. But I asked Sean right before the BYU opener in 1998, Sean, how did you score 54 touchdowns in one season? And he thought for a second, he looked at me and smiled and he said, one at a time.
I love that. Hey, I'll tell you one of my favorite players ever for Auburn from Athens, Alabama, Freddie Smith, number 31, scored 113 touchdowns in high school, ended up with 542 tackles as a linebacker, had that great year of 181 tackles in 1979. Hurricane Frederick, they called him. But no, I love going back and studying that history like that. And let me say something real quick before we let Rodney tag out. Rumble Boxing flash sale today only. Buy a membership and get your first month for $7. We're having a huge flash sale for Jab's 7th birthday. Get your first month for $7 when you buy any type of membership, unlimited 8 classes or 4 classes. All you have to do is stay with us for 3 months, but no worries because you will be absolutely hooked once you getting going. Normal rates will be back to normal after the first month. This deal will end at 11:59 p.m. tonight. Come start the new year with us. Really, reply back yes if you are interested in joining. Go to the rumbleboxinggym.com website. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. You don't have to think hard to know what that means. Go out and help others. We are all blessed in so many ways. There are no bad days, people. Find excuses to win. Rodney, let people know how they can follow you. We got a great show in store for you, by the way, tomorrow. Start off with Dudley Dawson, hogville.net. Coach Jackie Sherrill, ironically, will be joining us.
Wow.
Rodney, so we'll be having him on tomorrow. I texted him the other night watching the 12th Man show about Texas A&M, and he is just one of my absolute favorite guests that you ever have on. His knowledge of history. Nobody's ever done this on the show before, Rodney. He gave the daily routine of Coach Bryant, getting up at 4 o'clock, going out on Highway 82 to the Holiday Inn for breakfast, and the stuff he would do, an hour every day in the stock market. So cool. History, traditions, and heroes. But Rodney, as always, thank you a million. We went a little bit long, but you know what? You can't say no when Rodney's telling a cool story like that. That Sean Alexander, pretty damn good player. But let them know how they can follow you, and we'll tag out of here.
Well, you can tell Jackie Sherrill was really disappointed that he didn't become the Alabama coach in 1987. But anyway, it's TighterInsider.com. It's TighterInsider.com. It's only $48 a year. You can get instant access with your credit card if you prefer. There is an address there to send a check, gives you all our premium information. But Rob, it's our all sports forum, our community of Alabama fans. A lot of discussion like you and I had just right here. This is all over TiderInsider.com 24/7. I mean, we constantly talking Bama. But again, TiderInsider.com, as you mentioned, our TV show tonight, live statewide show, 6:30, Gary Harris, myself, WBUA 23 here in Tuscaloosa. So, but hey, we appreciate it, Rob, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Look, we're going to look forward to having you on next week. But they can catch it on YouTube as well. Don't miss it. Tider Insider, folks. Great show. We are out of here. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends.